Have you ever waited for closure that never came? Have you ever checked your phone for the 100th time, hoping for a message that will never come? That hollow ache when someone leaves without goodbye isn't just heartbreak. It's the pain of a story left unfinished. But what if I told you there's a way to find peace, even without closure? This ancient wisdom changed everything for me. I know what it's like. Waking up at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding, reaching across empty sheets for someone who once promised forever. That limbo between us and only me, where breath feels like broken glass. 5 years ago, the person I had built my world around, my partner, my future, my home, disappeared from my life without warning. We'd talked about children's names the night before. Then came the text, "I need some time." And after that, nothing but silence. As days turned to weeks, their belongings still mingled with mine, their scent fading from our sheets. I found myself driving to places we loved, hoping to accidentally run into them, rehearsing what I'd say. I'd stand in the shower until the water ran cold, replaying every moment, searching for the invisible fracture that must have been there all along. Did they meet someone else? Was I not enough? Had everything between us been a beautiful lie? Their family wouldn't answer my calls. Mutual friends suddenly became distant. It wasn't just a person who disappeared. It was an entire future, vanishing like smoke through my fingers. But there's a story I discovered during my darkest moment, when I'd stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped believing I'd ever feel whole again. A simple tale that helped me breathe when I thought I couldn't. Maybe it will do the same for you. A young monk once sat outside the temple walls, knees drawn to his chest. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. He hadn't slept. His mind was tangled in questions, circling like restless birds. The person he trusted most was gone. No explanation, no farewell. When golden morning light touched the garden, his master approached. The scent of jasmine hung in the air. As the master sat beside him in silence, broken only by distant temple bells, finally, the monk whispered, voice trembling like a leaf, "I waited all night, Master. I thought he would return. I thought I deserved a reason." The Master looked at him with eyes that had witnessed 1,000 partings. And what answer would truly ease your heart? The monk's shoulders fell. "I don't know. I just feel hollow, like something essential inside me was carved out." The master rose slowly, robes whispering against the dew, and motioned for the monk to follow. They walked through the garden, their steps leaving soft impressions in wet grass. They stopped beneath a tall maple tree. A single crimson leaf clung to a high branch, trembling between holding on and letting go. The master spoke softly, so softly, as if not to disturb the wind. "That leaf will fall. The tree does not ask why. It does not hold bitterness or demand answers. It lets the wind take what it must and waits for spring. The monk stared at the leaf, tears welling in his eyes, feeling both the weight of his grief and something lighter beginning to stir. The master placed a weathered hand on his shoulder. Some people leave, not because you failed, but because their path turned. The wind carries them away from you. You can clutch the branch until your fingers bleed, demanding the wind return what it took. Or you can open your hand and trust that life will bloom again. The monk closed his eyes, breathing deeply, feeling both the ache of loss and the first breath of release. This story found me the night I sat on the bathroom floor, clutching their old t-shirt, wondering how much longer I could live in this limbo between holding on and letting go. My hands were raw from clutching that branch, but slowly I began to open my fingers. I boxed up their belongings, not to erase them, but to make space for healing. When the urge came to check their social media, I'd set a timer and sit with the discomfort. I started writing letters about what their silence taught me about myself. I learned to separate the questions I needed answers to from the ones I was using to keep them present. Letting go isn't forgetting. It's remembering with compassion, while choosing to release your grip on a story that ended differently than you hoped. It's recognizing that their absence does not define your worth. The closure you were waiting for was always yours to give. Sometimes people leave without explanation because they lack the courage or capacity to face what they're doing. Their silence speaks volumes about them, not about you. And here's the unexpected gift. In that raw, empty space, you will rediscover parts of yourself that had been overshadowed. Your capacity for love wasn't wasted. It was proof of your depth, your courage, and your willingness to risk vulnerability. The most profound healing comes when you realize the story was never about them leaving. It was always about you finding your way back to yourself. If your heart is still holding on to someone who vanished without closure, I invite you now to breathe with me, in and out. Picture that crimson leaf, trembling, then falling, gently, carried by something larger than itself. Now, imagine your questions, your hurt, your unfinished conversations. Release them, like that leaf, because spring always returns and you will bloom again. Some doors close without a sound, but in their closing, they guide you forward to doors you couldn't see before. The love you have to give is still there, undiminished, waiting for the right soil in which to grow. If this story touched something tender in you, let it stay with you. And when you feel ready, I'd love to know, what goodbye are you still holding on to? And what would it feel like to finally let it go? If this video helped you, share it. It might reach someone silently drowning in the same questions you once faced. Remember, your worth was never determined by someone else's ability to see it. And sometimes, the most healing happens when we share our deepest wounds with each other.